Hey guys, what I'd like to do today is talk to you about how you can let go of negative habits or behaviors which kind of hold you back in living the life that you deserve. Now, I'm recording this on video and also audio. It might be a good idea to watch this on video if you're listening to this on one of my apps. And you can do so on YouTube, which is youtube.com/Joseph Clough Hypnosis. So youtube.com/Joseph Clough Hypnosis. But I'm going to explain it in a very auditory way as well, so you may not have to do that, but you've got both options there. So let's talk about how you can break up negative habits. You see, habits or thoughts which enter our mind are simply only given permission to be there by our relationship to that habit. You see, habits are created over a period of time. So if we have a negative behavior or issue in our life, it's coming to fruition simply by doing it a number of times. Now, I know you don't consciously do this on purpose. The body assumes control of it. It's like learning to drive a car. As soon as you got in the car, it's very overwhelming at first, but after a couple of weeks of you doing your lessons and absolutely having been in the car by yourself for a period of months, you start to do it naturally where you don't think about it. And that goes for the same thing for pretty much every habit that you've got right now. The good, the bad, the ugly. They're things which are created at an unconscious level and are maintained and carried out in an unconscious way. So how can you change a habit which is having an impact on your life? Well, there's a few ways we can do this. The first thing we need to do is become conscious of our strategy. So I'd like to ask you the question of, how do you know when it's time to feel X, Y, Z or to do X, Y, Z? So what's your reality there, or your reality strategy of it actually happening? So what's the trigger? What triggers you to have that thought, behavior, habit, whatever it may be, if you even a feeling? And consider that trigger. Maybe it's something that you hear. Maybe it's something that you see. Maybe it's something that you feel. Now, usually it's going to be an external trigger because you won't consciously do it on the in your mind, in other words. So it's going to be usually something external. So consider that. How do you know when it's time to do this habit or behavior? And I want you to consider that trigger, because that's the thing which is firing off the strategy, firing off that habit. And the more we know about it, or not know all the details, but know when it's happening or when it starts to happen, we can interrupt that habit, that pattern, break it, and instead go down a new way. And I've talked about this in my videos before. Imagine a big overgrown garden. Now, if you go down the same route of that overgrown garden, it's going to be well trodden down. It's going to be a wonderful pathway there. Now, it's the exact same thing with the mind and body. The more times you do something, in your brain, you're going down that pathway and it becomes easier to think, feel, and act in a certain way. Good, bad, or ugly, once again. It's just how it works. So what we need to do is develop a new pathway in the brain. And it all starts with you doing this consciously. Now, obviously, my hypnosis does this tremendously well, but I think we can have an added edge here. If you don't want to invest in money, like I said, I'm always here to support you. So here's something you can do consciously to retrain your mind to get new results. And you can apply this for anything which has an external trigger, and there always will be an external trigger, which causes you to act and react in a certain way. So as we become aware of this trigger, we can do a number of things with it. So first of all, what I'd like you to do is imagine your association to whatever it is when you consider it in your mind. You see, for it to be a part of your reality, you must have some form of relationship to it. Otherwise, you wouldn't give it meaning. It wouldn't be of value to you. And by relationship, in this context, it's going to probably be a visual image, which will be in a combination of auditory, so our sound, so it may have a sound to it, may have a feeling to it, because it causes you to feel a certain way. But I'm interested in how you see and perceive that trigger, how you know when it's time to do it, and also the image which comes to mind when it happens. So as we consider that, what image do you have in your mind? What's the first thing that pops up? Your relationship to it, the thing which symbolically represents it, your association to it. And as you consider that association, is that picture or that image in color or black and white? And just notice that very quickly, just whatever comes to mind. And as you notice that, is it a big picture or is it a small one? What's the distance between you and that image? How big is it in that context? Is it clear or is it not clear? Is it a movie or is it a still? And as you consider that relationship, maybe you're in that picture, so you're like watching yourself on a movie screen. Like imagine we're like watching myself right now. If you're watching me, you can see me in it. So as I watch it, I can see me in it. That means I'm dissociated. So I'm seeing myself over there do the behavior and acting in that way. Or am I looking through my own eyes as I think about that thing which triggers me off? So there could be two different ways, being associated or dissociated. Dissociate, seeing yourself in that picture over there as you symbolically think of that thing, or are you looking through your own eyes as if you're in that moment? And as you consider that, I want you to then consider the distance between you and that thing. So is it up close to you? Is it really right up in your face? Or is it quite far away? Is it to the left of you? Is it down below? Is it above? And just notice your relationship to it. This is all we're doing right now. We're noticing the relationship to our issue, because this is the unconscious association. And the quicker we kind of answer these questions, the more unconscious it is. So don't consciously think about it too much, because it'll start to change. So just be aware of how you notice that connection. And then what I'd like you to do is notice the sounds there. Are there any sounds which are important to this? And notice where that location is. Is it in you or outside of you? Is it loud? Is it not loud? Is it continuous? And just notice the general sounds, the auditory, of that thing or your association to it. And then in turn, notice, are there any important feelings when you think about this issue or this habit, this trigger? And as you do, is it, where's the location of that in your body? Is it a heavy feeling, a light feeling? Has it got movement? Has it got a color to it? Has it got a vibration to it? And just be aware of that as well. Now, here's the interesting thing. I want you to consider now, as we put all of those to one side, being aware of where they were, I want you to consider something, and you can change this depending on the context of the issue. I'm trying to do it quite general so everyone can do this, but you can make it more precise. I want you to think of something which has no energy to it. So in other words, that it's just not important to you. And as you think about it, there isn't much of a connection to you. It doesn't bother you, in other words. It doesn't have that energetic negativity or thought or way attached to it. You're very, you could say, indifferent to whatever that may be. Now, it could be something as simple as you're doing your grocery shopping. It could be as simple as a mundane task at work. It could be absolutely anything which you just have no attachment to when it comes to good or bad feelings. You're just like, well, it's just not important to me. It has no high energy there. I'm very indifferent about it. And it could be anything. Now, as I say anything, it can also be good to consider something similar to the issue which you have no energetic tie. That means that your brain is thinking on the same level. But if you can't think of something which is similar to the issue, which you have no feeling attached to, that you're very indifferent about, if you've got one of those, perfect. But if not, just consider something else which you're just very indifferent to, has no meaning, it has no real energy there. And now what I want to do is, you've got that in your mind, I want you to notice that internal representation. Is it color or black and white? Is it a movie or still? Where's the location of it? Is it near to you, far from you? Are you in that picture, or are you looking through your own eyes? And just notice these subtle things. Is it framed? Is it panoramic? Is it moving? Is it a still? And just be aware of that as well. And then I want you to consider the sounds attached to it. And then notice where those sounds are. Location, good, bad, whatever it is to you, loud, soft. And then become aware of the feelings you have to it. Now, naturally, these feelings are going to be very much dull because you're very indifferent to it. So there could be little or no feeling there. But notice even that no feeling on the inside of you. The location of that indifference. And then what I like to do is this. There's where we get the real idea. bring back to your mind that problem issue, that trigger, the habit which kind of gets in the way all the time, which is always on your mind there. And notice where that location is again, in visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And what I like to do is start to move the visual representation of the issue into the same type of representation of indifference. So if it was color and indifference was black and white, you move it into black and white, or you change it to black and white. If a location was far, far away, send that image now far, far away. Notice how you can just change the internal representation into exactly the indifference, which has no energetic tie. Just visually move it very quickly. Just go bang, put it over there, change the color. If you're associated and you were dissociated in the other one, make it dissociated. Seeing yourself in the picture, and do it exactly how you represent indifference when it comes to your visual. So we're moving the visual of one into another. We're changing the relationship, in other words, and then we'll do it naturally, but change the internal sounds as well, or the external sounds, into the indifferent sounds where you have no energy there. And then make the feelings go into the indifference as well. So if the feelings were very high, but indifference, there was just a low feeling of nothingness, you push that all the way down very quickly. So we're changing every representation of that issue into how you perceive that indifference behavior or trigger of something which is just very indifferent, boring, has no energy there. And what we're doing is we're telling our unconscious mind that rather storing it in this present way, this is the new location. And in your mind, do this very, very quickly as you move all the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic into indifference, into where just like grocery shopping, whatever it is for you. I want you to imagine in your mind, you've got like one of those staple guns, and you're just kind of stapling that internal representation into the new place of indifference. When it comes to the feelings, just kind of lock those in place and just lock them right there. And even command to yourself, speaking to my unconscious mind, you will keep these in this new place because this is a safer way of being in the world. This issue, although trying to serve me probably, is no longer of value to me, and I want to put it in this indifference here. By doing so, your unconscious mind is being reaffirmed that this is how you're going to be. So there's a great way of changing your association to. I mean, even if you consider this as a takeaway, if something's in your mind continuously, you're going to have a very strong attachment to it. And all you got to do is take that picture and send it miles away. Make it smaller and smaller and smaller, darker and darker and darker. Send all the sounds over there and even take the feelings out there as well. Or spin the feelings in the opposite direction if it had movement. Change the color. And all we're doing here is getting the unconscious mind to say, hey, rather going down this pathway of the garden, we're going down a new way. This is how we perceive this thing. So we're literally breaking up that old habit by giving it a new meaning. And in this context, we're doing it in such a way where we're giving the meaning no meaning of indifference. And let's just say, how could we even improve this further? Or think of something of how you'd like to act and react. And see that in your mind of how you'd like to be. And imagine this. Imagine making that internal representation visually, kinesthetically, and auditory. So you're feeling, your visual. So you're through your inner mind and external mind of your sight when it comes to your hearing internally and externally, and your feeling internally and externally. And make that new desired way as vibrant and as big as possible. Turn up those sounds inside your mind. Increase and spin those wonderful feelings of freedom, power, strength, courage, or even to peace or love or happiness. So you're literally designing your mind to see and perceive new ways of doing things. And that will become the new strategy. Lock those in place in your mind. And we're literally telling our unconscious mind, not this, but that. And this is a new way of doing things. So I hope you enjoyed that tip of how you can maintain a new way of seeing things, letting go of old triggers. So every time your unconscious mind thinks of it, it automatically brings it into that new way of being. And even more so, here's a super cool thing. That old trigger or that old way of being, that association just won't be there anymore because it has no meaning. It has the indifference there. We gave it meaning by our unconscious coding of that relationship, but now we're coding it in a new way of indifference. And you can modify this exactly how you want to. I mean, as I said, it's very much a vague subject or a very generalized way, because I want to be able to help many people when it comes to this, but you can design it exactly how you want it, knowing the strategy, knowing your association and changing the association. You see, when you change the association, you'll change the meaning of that relationship. So you can enhance good things, you can decrease the negative things. Ultimately, you're having control of your inner mind's working, and I think that's absolutely awesome even. So I hope you enjoy that. Have a wonderful day. If you're enjoying my work, as always, I know I say it after every one, but it's so vital in helping more and more people. Go ahead and write a review, like this video on YouTube, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. And have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Many thanks and goodbye.